Welcome to Woodturning Series 2, Lesson 1. This is Woodturning 101. And what we're going to do in this series is introduce you to the wood lathe and its basic tools. And we're pretty well going to follow the lessons as laid out in this particular video today, Chapter 1 and half of Chapter 2. So here's a reading version. This is a video version we're going to do. And I know if you're not able to take our classes, you'll have to practice. If you're taking the classes, this is just good review to go along with your Insight lesson plans. So let's go through the basics. This is a wood lathe, and every other one that you see has the same components as the one I'm working on today. There is some way to drive the wood. There's a motor, a series of belts, and a spindle that rotates. And to hold the piece in place, we use what's called a drive center. This has multiple points on it, but there's other types. And to hold the piece of wood at the other end, to support it between centers, we use what's called a live center. This is a ball bearing mounted device that is designed to rotate. It fits into the tailstock. The tailstock is allowed to move, lock in place, and then there's a quill which advances and locks it down. We can secure the quill. Using a bunch of new terms, and these are going to be constantly repeated again in each and every one of the lessons. The way we manage the tools is by laying them on a tool rest, which can be moved in and out and around, and it can be raised and lowered. So when we mount a piece of wood between centers, we want to get it as near perfectly centered as we can. So I'm going to use a device called a center finder. I simply lay it onto the corner of this piece of wood, scribe a line, lay it onto the next corner, scribe a line. And if the piece is not square, I'll probably go around all four corners and find out where the center is. But this piece I know is square. So there and here represent where we're going to mount it. Put these aside. I'm now going to use a punch, the purpose of which is to simply mark this a little bit better. I'm going to place it on here and push down. It's spring loaded, and it creates a little bit of an indent. It's very difficult to see this X when I'm mounting it, but it's easy to feel that spot. Now, before I actually put this in here, this is a taper. It's called a Morris taper. This happens to be size number 2. The inside of this matches. And for this to seat well, we want to clean this. Just remove any accumulated debris. This sets in here tightly, and we may need a rod to knock it out, to get it out free. Same thing on this end here. Morris taper. Morris taper. We'll clean. Insert the live center. And now to mount this piece of wood between centers, I'm going to find that little dimple. I'm going to bring this up fairly close, lock it so it doesn't move, and advance the quill till the point of that live center enters the wood. Now, when it's properly held is when I can hold the hand wheel out here, stop the spindle, and find this doesn't move. This is wiggly. It's not tight enough. Now I'm holding the hand wheel to prevent the spindle from moving and trying to wiggle the wood. It wiggles just a little bit, so I want a little more. No wiggle. It's tight enough. Now to prevent this from unwinding, I'm going to lock the quill. So this is set up, ready to turn. We start wood turning between centers, meaning the fibers of the wood are running this direction. And this is what we call spindle turning. And it's a good place to start because we will introduce you in this series of lessons to the 4 major wood turning tools. The 5th one will be reserved for our next series. So what I want to do is talk to you about first getting this thing set up to the right running speed. There are some lathes that have a dial that allows me to adjust the speed by variable electronics. There's other ones like this one that has a belt in it. And what I need to do is adjust the belt to the proper speed. For a small piece with squirt corners like this, just getting started, I'm going to suggest between 15 and 1800 RPM is a good starting spot. So I'm going to open the cover. Open the cover down here. This is the pulley down here that's attached to the motor. There's a pulley up here attached to the spindle, and I'm simply going to move the belt until they align at the proper spot. And I'm checking this lathe, and we're going to move it to 1800. I'm taking the motor pressure off so the belt moves freely, sliding it to the proper pulleys, retightening. Every lathe may work slightly differently, but still the same. First major lesson. We're going to move the tool rest to within about a 1/4 inch of the wood. Lock it in place, and every time you run the lathe, you give your project a free spin by hand. The idea is we do not want it interfering with the tool rest and binding and possibly coming off, so we'll keep that free. Now before I get started, I have to be sure I'm properly attired. I've got leather footwear on, so if I drop something that has a pointy edge, it's not going to land on my foot and do damage. No floppies, no sandals, no tennis shoes. We want something that will protect your feet. One. I have my forearms clear. If you have a long sleeve shirt, roll up the sleeves. I also have no loose, dangly stuff on here. My hair is a little longer than it needs to be, but if it was really long, I'd put a scrunchie or something back here to keep it away. No loose jewelry. I take my watch off, left it in my office. I have a turning smock on, which you don't need to have, but basically what it does is prevent the chips from going where I don't want them to go, down my neck. So it protects me there, gives me that short sleeve that I need. And since this is spindle work, project held between centers, I do need eye protection at all times, but I can stop with just a pair of safety glasses. If you feel more safe with a full face shield on, that's perfectly fine too. In advanced work, where we're holding things differently or where the project is more massive, a face shield is absolutely required. But for today, this will be sufficient. In this lesson, I'm going to introduce you to two tools. First one is called the spindle roughing gouge. The second tool we're going to use today is a Skew chisel. And I'm going to show you how to use it. And then if you need more information on the use of this tool and the information on sharpening this tool, look down here in the comments. You'll find a reference to our first series of videos. The first video is on the spindle roughing gouge, its use and its sharpening. More detail is there. So my job now is to make this thing generally round. So I don't know how high this tool rest is, whether it's correct or not, so I'm going to hold this tool in my right hand, handle somewhere near my hip, and I'm trying to find a comfortable place where my shoulders are about the right height. And I'm going to walk up to the lathe, and I'm going to try to lay the tool on the tool rest, and it seems a little low. I want to be sure that when the tool sharpening edge touches the wood, this cutting edge right here, it is slightly above this center line. If it's below, there's a possibility of this. So I lay the tool on the tool rest. I find I'm standing comfortably. My shoulders are down. My feet feel like they're in a good place. And I'm comfortable. I think I'm probably just about ready to go to work. I've adjusted the tool rest. I need to spin it again to make sure it is running clear. Clear the decks, get everything out of the way. And here's how I'm going to hold the tool. I'm going to lay it up on the wood so you can see better. The tool is in one hand. That handle is near my side. The other hand is going to hold it down on the tool rest with the flute, this round portion aiming straight up. And my cuts are going to be by moving along the tool rest like this. Now, if that's locked against my side and the tool is like this, the only way I can get it to go is by physically moving my body. You'll get a much smoother cut. For those of you who are new, haven't done any wood turning before, this is going to feel very strange because many of the tools I'm going to demonstrate to you through this series are going to require you to move your body. And that is something that we're not generally comfortable with doing until we practiced a while. So, glasses on. I'm going to step to one side, maybe out of the picture a second when I turn this on. I don't want to be in a path when I'm testing to see whether everything's running fine. So I'm going to work from about the center towards one end, and then from the center towards the other end. I'm not going to ever come in from the bitter end, because I could easily hook this tool into one of these corners and get a catch. Now, what is a catch? The term's going to come up a lot in wood turning. A catch is simply a point in time where the tool is taking out more wood than you and your hands can control. It's an aggressive cut. Sometimes happens when we don't expect it, and there are things we will do to try to minimize that as we go through. It's not a dangerous thing, it's just sometimes a surprise. So no catches if we can help it. I'm going to work from here to here. I'm going to work left-handed. So I've got my feet in a place where I feel I can start this cut and finish it and not fall over. So I'm doing this. Here we go. Now, that was our first cut. And as you heard, it's not a very loud noise. I wasn't fighting the tool a lot, and the way I did that is by taking the back edge of this tool, just touching it against the wood, and then slowly raising my hand until the cut is engaged. I can increase or decrease the depth of the cut by simply raising and lowering my guiding hand. And as you see, what I took off here was just a very little amount of wood. There should not be any work involved in this. Let me do it with the other hand. On the tool rest, against my hip, the back of the tool is touching the wood lightly. I'm going to raise my hand until I see some dust. Right there. And now I'm not going to move. I'm just going to lean to my right. Each cut repeats. This is a very light thing. I can do it with my fingertips. If you're working at it, you're pushing too hard. If you hear this, you're pushing too hard. And I'm always working towards the end in order to take care of that square corner. Very light cuts. Some people might call this right-handed turning. I can do it with the other hand. There's a problem with doing this end left-handed. I'm over here, almost out of your camera shot. The wood's back over here. I want to stay in front of my work. So this works better on this end with my right-handed cut. First practice, get a piece of square wood. 2x4s work great if you cut them in half so they're roughly square. Put them between center and just start roughing out with the spindle roughing gouge. One single purpose for this tool, and this is it. Now I'll go the other direction. Before I do that, I notice that my tool rest doesn't quite reach to the end of this piece, so if I go all the way down to the end, I'm going to fall off the tool rest, and that's kind of embarrassing. So I'm going to move the tool rest over, check for that 1/4 inch clearance, be sure, oh yeah, still clearance. So now I'm going to do the other side. In order to stay in front of the wood, I'm going to switch the other hand. There are cuts that you're going to make in wood turning that require the use of the left hand, some cuts that require you to use the right hand, and there are some cuts you can do either way. So basically, we're all left-handed turners and we're all right-handed turners. Just have to build the skills up. Okay, the other side. Same thing, rub, raise, slide. Now, in that series of 3 cuts I made, I held the right hand in 3 different positions. And it doesn't matter as long as it's comfortable. But use the tool rest as a guide to keep your cuts straight. My tool rest is sent straight along, so that as I cut along here, if my finger is against the back edge of it, I'm going to be able to maintain a linear cut. Holding the tool way back like this may feel safe, but it is much more dangerous. It's more dangerous because I don't have control. The tool could slide forward and back and engage the wood more deeply than I would like. So stay tight, keep that tool on your hip, keep your feet properly positioned for movement. Raise, engage. Now once this corner is rounded off, I can go both directions. What you're seeing is me use the center portion of the tool, get some of these chips away, to do the cutting. And I'm keeping the tool at 90 degrees to the face of the wood. As this area gets dull, I can easily roll this tool and use a different portion of this edge, which is still sharp, it hasn't been touched, or to the other direction. Interesting thing about cutting wood is this is soft poplar, fairly soft hardwood to work with. But all woods are abrasive. And so this high-speed steel tool, which was just sharpened before this video was started, will quickly become dull just from being engaged with poplar, a very soft wood. So all wood is abrasive. If you have to push hard, you get funny looking chips. It gets hot. These are all indications that your tool is getting sharp and you need to go to the grinder and resharpen. This is where you need to check Series 1, Video 1 to see precisely how that's being done. Let me finish rounding this out. Left hand side first. If you go fast like I just did, you will see appearing on the surface of the wood something that looks like a screw thread, because I've gone so fast that these cuts have not overlapped and I've not got a very nice looking surface. So for my final cuts, this is almost round here, I have to finish this end off. For my final cuts, I'm going to go much more slowly to take care of all those funny looking little marks. Slow this down. This is right-handed now. How do I know if it's round? If it wasn't round, this would be bouncing up and down. I can always stop the lathe and look, but I'm never going to reach in here to feel it. It's just not a good idea. One more roughing cut on this end because I still see a little tiny flat here, and then I'm going to smooth it out. Okay, we got it round. Now remember my spiral marks here? Let's make one last cut with this tool, lightly and slowly. I only did from here down, and probably you can't see it on the camera, but this looks fairly smooth. I can see spirally marks here. I can see really big spirally marks down here when I was going fast. And to the feel, to my finger, this is much softer here than here. So let me do the same thing on this end. Lock, test. Light cut. And it looks a lot better. So this is the spindle roughing gouge, cut number 1. Practice a lot. Keep this edge ground sharp so we can get good clean cuts. Sharp tool is a safe tool. I'm going to do one more cut on this and we're going to finish this video. And I'm going to go to our next tool, which is called the Skew chisel. Excuse me. Skew chisel is called that because the edge of it is at a skewed angle. It's probably the most versatile tool that you'll ever use. And we're going to introduce you to just one cut today. What makes it a beautiful tool, but also one of the tools that requires a little higher learning curve, is the fact it's double-edged. Being double-edged means I can come up to the right cutting spot easily. And by moving a micron farther, I can go past that and get into a difficult cutting area. I'm going to raise the tool rest just a little higher. And the purpose of doing that is so that I can be cutting at just about 11 o'clock, someplace along in this area here. And the reason I want to cut up this high, simply so I can see where I'm working. If I was cutting down here, I'd have a less comfortable place to cut. So, let me introduce you to the ABCs of wood turning. It applied to the first tool, it also applies to this one. ABC, anchor, bevel, cut. Anchor, that's me, the tool rest, and once it's round, it's the wood itself. 3 points of contact, nice stable position. Bevel, that's this flat portion behind the cutting edge on all the different tools. I want to get that engaged against the surface of the wood for additional support. And then C, cut, I get that cut by simply raising my supporting hand until I see those chips coming off. Anchor the tool, body, tool rest, wood, rub the back edge, the bevel, and raise until I just get dust. Now with this tool, as soon as I get that dust, I stop raising my hand and freeze this triangular support area and just lean my body one direction. Anchor, bevel's rubbing. Oh, there's a little dust. All I want. I'll do that cut in this area again. And I'm just doing that small area and I want to show. I wish we had high def, because between here and here, that is as smooth as glass. And many times, especially if you're doing furniture work, that quality of a cut is sufficient to go right to finish or to paint grade, whatever you're trying to do. No sanding may be required if you get a good cut off your Skew chisel. Multiple cuts, but just simply these two I want you to practice. Number one, get a piece of wood between centers. Turn it round with our spindle roughing gouge. And then come up and plane along here to smooth up the surface. Lesson number one, practice, practice, practice. If you need more information on the Skew chisel, how this particular planing cut is done, and how it is sharpened, go back to Woodturning Series 1, video number 2. Both of these links are in the comments right below the video. So for more detail on each of the tools and its use, there's your second source. Also, some good illustrations in the book. I hope you have fun getting into wood turning. We'd like you to stick with us through the series and develop some really good skills in spindle turning. We'll see you in the next lesson.